I started with the desire to create an image that was indifferent. But how can an image express a lack of care? Not an image of indifference, such as a callous ignoring of suffering, but an image that is itself indifferent. Is it possible? Can a camera be indifferent? To show is to choose, and to choose is to care. That is the curse of the artist, to feel, to be fascinated, to see more than others, to be disappointed, to mourn the death of the ideal only to awaken each day to the same fruitless search for an impossible perfection betrayed by our flaws and limitations. For how do I feel indifference? Perhaps the doped state halfway between sleep and wakefulness in the world, but not yet part of it, gives a hint. Certainly that moment proves the world around me does not care. The sun came up this morning just as it did yesterday and will tomorrow just as it did before I was born and will after I die. At times, I have to remind myself of the world's indifference to anyone. Throwing on a robe and staggering to the bathroom is the first step in dealing with that realization. Bathed in a garish glamour of bright light, the bathroom sink and toiletries seem larger and more vivid than the bedroom that served so well as a refuge, and which now seems somewhat smaller than before I went to sleep, as if the walls have crept closer by a few inches in the dark of night. I have my first chance to weigh and prioritize as thoughts start to drift to what the new day, blossoming with potential, has in store. As I splash my face, make the bed, choose my clothes, and dress, each action makes me a little more alert, a little more involved in that already humming world, framed by the window, buzzing, bubbling, self-concerned, a tiny, vibrant stage. Countless unseen, uncaring details oblivious to my existence seem to say, the day is what you make of it, no more, no less. It is up to you. We are too busy to care. We can be indifferent even if you cannot. So the world functions without me. But by acting on the potential it offers, I shatter any possibility of reciprocal insouciance. Each move and breath acknowledges one's place in the world, not in the sense of a structured, preordained cosmos, but exactly its opposite, as flotsam in a constant flux over which we have no control and no choice but to participate or float on the surface. The simplest action endorses, even embraces every complexity. The more gratuitous or unnecessary the action, the further from simple survival we proceed, the more that complicity grows. To ask what an image of indifference would be implies a physical form, with characteristics and details to arrange imaginatively, like mentally fussing with bric-a-brac in order to dust. For instance, what color would it be? It is tempting to suggest it would be gray, neither black nor white, lacking contrast, barely visible. But of course, the purest shade of gray has equal parts of black and white, side by side in an uneasy truce that pleases no one, perhaps, but which assures a calm equilibrium that might be mistaken for indifference. If black and white flee to the corners, gray disappears into an open conflict of extremes that belies the possibility of the blank, the empty, the absent. So much for that foundation of cinema, the most rationalist of senses, vision. What about the most primitive? Can indifference have a smell, or a simple breathing, taking clean air for granted, the closest we can come to it? Anything else hints at a presence of something more, perhaps pleasant or far too pungent to be ignored, but always with an insistent weight and gravity that attracts attention even if we cannot identify the source. Something as distinct as the sulphurous, acrid, slightly salty scent of a freshly struck match, or the kiss of the wind in the fleeting, sweet odor of laundry fresh from the line, reminds us of the intricate texture of the world, heightening experience in ways that make indifference impossible. Perhaps it is that impossibility that makes people mistake it for insensitivity, though to be indifferent is not to be numb. It comes from knowing yourself well enough to let others do as they please. As Montaigne observed, the greatest thing in the world is to know how to belong to oneself. It is that self-possessed neglect of others, that willingness not to moralize, that is mistaken for an assertion of superiority, as if not caring and leaving people to themselves betokens condescension. Is indifference then the ultimate expression of tolerance, or its dead end? Is it contempt to insist on a lack of significance? If so, can indifference have a social value? In a world of constant disruption and change for itself, in which anger becomes its own justification and its own identity, to seek life as a blank, without feeling, neither loving nor hating, to exist only as a body in space, proceeding in the light between the darkness of before and after, may be the only rational attitude to take. But while such existence would remove all stress, surprise, effervescent joy, and the passionate excitement that spring from experience like a gushing fountain in the heat of summer would also disappear. To not care is the ultimate self-destruction, even if in small doses it works as self-preservation. If it is our good fortune that complete indifference is impossible, its vacancy remains a tempting goal, never as substantial as an image, but always latent as a potential, hovering on the edges of attitude and the detachment of cool self-assurance.